Okay. Welcome everyone to WACBE webinars, our distinguished biomedical engineering webinar series hosted by the World Association for Chinese Biomedical Engineers. My name is Chen Kong Chen, and I'm chair professor at the School of Biomedical Engineering at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. In terms of the webinar format today, our speaker will present for approximately 40 minutes, and we will leave 15 to 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. Throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions. We will try to get to as many questions as possible during the Q&A sessions. Today, we are excited to welcome our translational research advisor and a good friend of mine, Mr. Paul Yin. Paul has 40 more years of experience in engineering, joint ventures, marketing, and alliance in emerging countries. Paul spent 26 years with the GE Nuclear and GE Healthcare, GE Power, and as president of the GE Medical Taiwan. He was trained in Six Sigma and taught corporate courses in finance and business simulations. He spent 5 years as testing technology CEO in digital imaging R&D, and 6 years as Stryker Greater China CEO in endoscopy, tools, and implants, followed by a period as the head of the Medtronic Greater China business in navigation, spine, kyphoplasty, and the Medtronic WACBE joint venture. He spearheaded Medtronic global marketing in Brazil, Russia, India, and Mexico. Paul spent 4 years as senior advisor to Advanced International PE Fund on healthcare merger and acquisition in Europe, Asia, and Brazil. He is currently director of the Mediland for surgical and disinfection equipment, director of REMEX for orthopedic navigation, and the advisor to Chinese-speaking Orthopedic Society on innovation and evaluation. He is a licensed professional engineer in California with a Bachelor of Science degree from Harvard College and Master of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from UC Berkeley, and an MBA degree from Santa Clara University. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know there are many of you. First of all, I want to acknowledge the honor given to me by my best friend, Professor C.K. Chen and Professor Savio Wu. And I am honored to be invited to this forum to share my experience with many of you about healthcare. And amid the ongoing pandemic, there is no better time to recruit talented biomedical engineers like you to pursue a career in healthcare services. So let me see. Wait a minute. My screen is stuck. My screen is stuck. Don't know why. Can you hear me, CK?
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, my screen is stuck.
You need to go to the window. You go to the window of the PowerPoint and hit it.
Yeah, I did. My screen is, there you go. Okay. Okay, let me see, go right here. There you go. Yeah, I basically will go through my career in 5 decade segments, and roughly first decade being an engineer, second decade doing project engineering, the third decade in operation general management, the fourth decade creating markets to expand the product and services, and the fifth decade is the current decade, and I am sharing experience to influence others. And as a quick briefing, I will also offer some reflection and advice. I think the healthcare services, the need for such healthcare service is universal, as you see the current crisis. And let the market lead engineering. There are many entry points for talented people like you in healthcare value chain. I want to point out some opportunities to you, so hopefully you'll become pioneers. And together we can pursue innovation and healthcare channel to address the current affordability and accessibility issues. Okay. And first of all, my technical training, I went to Harvey-Mudd College as an undergrad and went to UC Berkeley for grad school, and later on joined GE and pursue MBA in parallel with my career. Just a quick look back of my early exposure to the real world. In my junior year, in 1971, I joined an interesting project sponsored by oil company on oil well fracturing fluid. And certainly I didn't know then, but 40 years later, this oil well fracturing fluid actually helped the United States gain energy independence, because we were able to get more oil out of the oil well by using the fracturing fluid. Then in 1972, I was actually assigned to a senior project working on the graphite moderator in high temperature helium gas cooled reactor sponsored by General Atomics. This was one of the early competing technologies of nuclear energy, and in fact got me interested in the nuclear energy technology. It was a fun project. I got to know how industry worked, but unfortunately, this technology didn't go very well. I think there's only one plant built in the United States. And then in 1973, I worked on stratified flow at UC Berkeley. Something fun with the application in air pollution, rocket dynamics, or submarines. And this particular knowledge probably had the least impact on my career. So the first decade, I joined GE Nuclear Energy, working on system design R&D. And you got to know that back then, nuclear energy was the high tech of the day, and personal computer like Apple was yet to be born about 6 years later in a garage about 10 miles away from me. And so this was the high tech versus what you know today as what is high tech. And obviously I had a lot of fun working on engineering. I got exposed to thermohydraulics, two-phase flow, boron chemistry, red waste structural dynamics, material degradation due to neutron bombardment. I think all these subjects would excite you. And I did a lot of testing, pressure suppression, and I worked on ASME boiler and pressure vessel code interpretation and application. And the type of professional discipline I got immersed in were the QA process, such as design review, design review process and documentation, and also publishing papers. As many of you in the technical world know well, I published many papers, and 3 of them were so-called Class 3 proprietary documents. Class 3 in GE meant something that's highly proprietary to the company's competitive advantage, and it was anyone caught leaving a Class 3 document on the desk unattended would be subject to disciplinary action. And in fact, when I transferred from one assignment to the other, I wasn't allowed to carry it with me. So this thing stayed with the company, and even after I left the company, it stayed with the company. And then I spent quite a bit of time debating with NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, about the ASME code. As you know, ASME code isn't really a Bible per se, but it's written by human beings, and we're all engineers, and we debate them in a public forum. And it was kind of fun doing this. Then in the second decade, I was a project engineer and I contributed to 8 plant sites operating license review. I think there are like 10 to 12 plants, because sometimes there are 2 plants per site. And these plants are all still humming along, generating electricity. In fact, I think they're all close to end of the cycle, end of the product cycle. And I would imagine the current day nuclear engineers will be worrying about how to decommission these plants. Even though we're the one who put them online some 40 years ago. And later on, I was promoted to run the regulatory services in the Northeast region of the United States. Well, engineering discipline. I was trained as a senior reactor operator, even though I did not hold that position. But this training allowed me to speak with authority, and I was the lead representative in front of NRC branches whenever mechanical engineering, reactor systems, structural engineering, seismic system branches came calling. I was the chief rep to represent a company to debate with them, and I program managed multidisciplinary resources. And as far as exposure to professional discipline, I attended many of the NRC meetings. I also attended anti-nuclear activist hearings, which is kind of fun. You debate with people who may or may not be technically rational. Then I managed a service business, and I was very well trained in regulatory compliance. Title 10 CFR, Title 10 of a Code of Federal Regulation, CFR. Well, this turned out to be a good training for me for my later day healthcare career, because healthcare had a Title 21 CFR, and the process of compliance is exactly the same. The reviewers would rely on a set of standard review plan, SRP, to review us. So in order to crack this, all these rules and regulations, you need to know their way of looking at things in terms of safety, efficacy. So this is a good training for a good foundation for my later career growth in healthcare services. Well, in the third decade, I was very, very busy. I joined GE Healthcare. Well, I don't want to give you the impression I had ambition of doing well in GE Medical Systems. It just turned out that GE Nuclear Energy wasn't growing anymore. And I was a company man, and GE asked me, since nuclear is not growing and GE Medical Systems is growing like leaps and bounds, would you like to join another business? And so they offered me a position, not knowing what I precisely was going to do. And I joined. And obviously that changed my life. It gave me a much broader horizon, and also allowed me a global stage. So first of all, I was in California, managing the Western 13 states operation from Denver to Hawaii, from Alaska to Mexico border. A very large piece of territory with the 24 branch offices. And I did that for 3 years. Then I was sent to Beijing. I became a member of the first China team to open up the Beijing market in 1993, running the China region service. And while I was there, GE organized an emerging market service committee because China, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, Middle East Africa, Latin America, these regions, we call them emerging markets. They share similar difficulties in terms of infrastructure, in terms of customer touch. So being in Beijing, I would travel to India quite often to assist them in the capacity of emerging market service committee member. So it gave me some additional exposure to the India market. And then in 1995, I was sent to Taiwan to become the president of Taiwan Region Joint Venture. Then I did that for 4 more years. Later on, toward the end of the decade, during those time, I also became an instructor on GE corporate courses. I taught many finance and business simulation classes. Toward the end of the decade, I was shipped to Korea, South Korea, to run a 35-plant supply chain, global manufacturing operation, to do precision manufacturing of gas, steam, and hydro turbines. You can see the photo here. This photo is the gas turbine. This photo is the steam turbine. Then you wonder, where's the hydro turbine? Well, if you go look on the website, you will see that Three Gorges Dam. I think there are like 32 hydro turbines, Three Gorges Dam in China. I think 8 of them were manufactured by my plant. Okay, and they were 30 feet across in diameter, big monster, high precision stuff. But I felt very proud to have contributed to my homeland when I saw these large turbines shipped out of the factory on flatbed. I was quite moved. A very interesting experience. The exposure to business in this decade, ISO 9000, as you know, 1992, the EU was formed, and ISO 9000 and 9001 became the quality standard of the day. So I was well trained in ISO. I also helped GE gain ISO 9000 certification, and then later on in the decade, we worked on Six Sigma quality. I think there's some parallel between the Western U.S. and China. They're basically a huge territory with a very poor service infrastructure that need to be built as you expand the diagnostic imaging business. And so it was an interesting experience, a good parallel experience for me. Then the joint venture negotiation on the international stage was also challenging. Negotiate, integrate, and operate a joint venture. And I also learned the service business model. You know, as we expand the healthcare services, we need to understand the service business model, make sure that each product we push to the market is a sustainable business in terms of a customer touch, and also in terms of sustainable profit model. Okay. Then, of course, in the emerging market, the governance issue was quite serious. Nothing similar to what we experienced in the United States in terms of integrity, compliance, foreign exchange, logistics, and the emerging market strategy based on my exposure to China and India would raise many issues that we would have to work on whenever we go to an emerging market. Segmentation, how do you segment it? Because it's not a uniform market, and it's not it has many different segments of people, clinicians, and so forth, and we need to tailor our products and services to different segments. And obviously, we can't do it on our own. We have to build alliance. So when we go there, we look for alliance opportunity. So I'm gonna use the next couple of pages to give you some example, give you a taste of what emerging market is all about. So let's look at India, and I just quickly circle the 8 major metropolitan areas. And if we look at India market, look at the typical pyramid. The very top of a pyramid is so-called premium, the premium segment, and they basically is concentrated in the 8 large metro areas with the insurance, high-end reimbursement, and affluent people. And so I cut a line right below where we already are. Okay, and then I cut a line number 2. That is a line below which I have no resources. I cannot possibly go there because I cannot possibly serve everybody. If I try to serve everybody, I'll end up serving nobody. So so this simple cut one, line cut one is up below where I am, and line number two, under which I cannot afford to go. What is left in the middle is what I call a value segment, which is really underserved by major brands. Nobody wants to go there. It's challenging. And there are many people. They're looking for our services. And they have a limited insurance. They have low-end reimbursement, and major brands simply don't care. And so this is where we want to make a difference. And so after making these two cuts, we can identify the incidence percentage. Incidence is basically percentage of people with certain illness. Okay, so after you cut market, you can identify the incidence percentage, and then sure enough, once you have the incidence, you can translate incidence to number of treatment cases. Not everyone who has the illness wants to see a doctor. Not everyone who wants to see a doctor is willing to be treated with a surgery. So therefore, there's some percentage conversion. And then after you convert from incidence to treatment cases, and then you can quantify the market size, and then we know where we are. So this is a very simple technique of cutting a large market with the different segments. And then if we apply a similar logic to the entire world, look at all the emerging economies, they look something like this. You can tell you've got Middle East, Africa, India, Russia, Eastern Europe, China, and Mexico, Central America, and Brazil, South America. Well, there's some logic to this because Mexico and Central America, there's some trade pacts. Okay, if you go to Mexico, most likely you are allowed to go into other Central American countries. If you go into Brazil, most likely you're allowed to go into other neighboring South American countries. So this is how we cut whole worlds. And these are the so-called emerging economies, where within each emerging economy, there are certain large value segments that has been ignored. Remember the middle piece segment that it has been ignored by major brands. And we estimate the population of that value segment is something like 1.5 billion. That's a lot of people. Not a population of all the territory, but population of the value segment of these emerging economies. And these value segments also include some peripheral markets. That is, you can typically tell that Brazil has neighboring countries as its peripheral market. Russia has Eastern Europe and Central Europe, and India has South Asia, Southeast Asia. Then, surprisingly, Africa is in China's backyard. Africa is actually China's peripheral market, and then of course Central America goes with Mexico. So typically in these emerging economies, there's a mega population underserved by the major brands. There's a rapid growth of middle class people who are longing for quality healthcare. And if we treat this as a positive attribute, then these value segments are actually testing ground for new products and services before we enter mature markets. So I think this is a very positive attribute we can treat these markets with. So in the fourth decade, the first half of the fourth decade, I was a CEO of a digital imaging controller company working on high-speed laser jet color printers. We were partnered with name brands, and obviously now you'll notice I actually left GE in year 2000. I left GE and I got recruited into this company, and to integrate R&D resources in Japan, China, and Taiwan. And obviously the most enticing reason to join this company was I was able to bring this company through IPO in 2001. I think some learning from this experience because this is a highly technical IP-driven company, and I spend a good percentage of my time working in U.S. courts with a lawyer to fight against patent infringement lawsuit. I wasn't upset at all about being sued. I feel that when I'm good enough to threaten some major competitor, then they sue me for patent infringement. So I feel it was an honor to be sued. And sure enough, I spent years in the U.S. Working on legal infringement fight. And we also mapped our technology product roadmap. Toward the end, as you know, these lawsuits don't mean a thing. You know, you never admit wrongdoing. You simply cross license, as you settle and cross license each other, and that's what happened. And I learned the Japanese quality rigor, and in fact, this company's technology is highly related to national defense, and so employees working in my company can also use the employment time as the alternative mandatory military service. Quite an honor, and my company received very high level visitors all the time. Interesting technology. I was there for 5 years, and then the company was acquired, and I returned back to healthcare. So in the fourth decade, for 6 years, I worked for Stryker and Medtronic. This really seemed like just one job because these two companies have similar products, similar clientele, similar channel, and slightly different channel strategy. But all in all, it was to me, it was just one job was a continuation of the other. In fact, Medtronic raided me from Stryker in order to run a much bigger company. And so in Medtronic, I was the Greater China Orthopedic business head. And later on, I led the business development in Brazil, Russia, India, Mexico. And the exposure is joint venture negotiation operation. And sure enough, my early day experience in Taiwan was a big help. And we did orthopedic R&D, clinical trial, pilot launch. And then again, we were able to apply the segmentation technique to many other emerging market countries, which I'll show you on the next page. And speaking of marketing, I think Stryker and Medtronic both are similar in a sense that we need to develop relationship with the surgeon societies at global, national, regional levels. We sponsor clinical training seminars, demo surgery, and we also did multi-brand, multi-segment distribution, which I will show you in graphical terms what I mean. I think in the past, we sort of focus on one brand, one market, one uniform market, which is typical United States, North America. But over here, we're going to do multi-brand in multi-segments. And then when we go to multi-segment, we also build alliance with the value segment players. And then definitely, as we did very well with the proven results, we would implement the coherent growth strategy in all of these countries: China, Brazil, Russia, India, and Mexico. Okay. So here, speaking of market, so I wanna spend some time sharing with you the importance of a market channel focus. Why do we keep talking about market channel focus? I think many of you are very good in R&D. Then I'll show you how values are allocated in a value chain. So imagine something that sells for $100, and as you build value from 0 to 100, how do the building blocks stack up? So first of all, so you've got here we have engineering, design, production. We have the asset amortization, R&D, patent, license, registration. About less than 20% of total value is engineering related. Okay, And then we've got sales admin, brand promotion, distribution and brand profit, logistics. We have the clinical support. We have the others, such as field service. These green colored blocks, they add up to 50% of total value in a market channel. Okay. Then of course, government takes its cut. You know, government levies, tax and fees, tender, and hospital takes its cut. Hospital markup, fees, and whatnot. You know, they have to make some money too. So all in all, about greater than 50% of the value in the value chain is actually created in the market channel. Okay, this might be a little refreshing to you because R&D engineering related is only less than 20%, and greater than 50% of total value is created in the market channel. So therefore, we have to know what we're doing. We have to know where we're going in order to build up the value chain to reach 100. And 100 meaning something gets sold to a patient. Okay. So let's talk about some best practices of market channel focus. I will show you what I did in 3 different emerging economies. China, how we address the affordability and accessibility. In Russia, we're going to identify value segment to expand healthcare. This is a huge piece of land. In Brazil, we're going to do a self-funded value segment healthcare. So here's China. We'll talk about multi-channel and multi-brand distribution. Well, we built the largest orthopedic company in 2008. In fact, for 3 years, this was the largest company. And then, and this company's formation triggered many other competitors' merger and acquisition, such that after 2011, I was no longer the biggest one, and some other guy came from behind. So this is what I did. Look at that. In the premium segment, we have the Medtronic brand. In the value segment, we have 2 other brands. And then in the economy segment, we have 2 other brands. So by applying this segmentation strategy, we were able to distribute 5 different brands across 3 segments simultaneously without channel conflict. And therefore, we were able to reach many patients that we used to ignore. Okay, so this is the strategy. And then after we put together market strategy, then I built the R&D department. Okay, the R&D department would do engineering, product roadmap, clinical trial, pilot launch. And then of course, we're not going to do this in a vacuum. We also put together a clinical advisory board comprising Greater China's top surgeons. These are the people who gave me feedback from time to time to design my products. Okay, and then Russia. In Russia, this is a large piece of land, and we decided to put together a team. We decided to go to, well, obviously we always fly to Moscow, and then we travel to 3 different cities: Yaroslavl, Kostroma, Ivanovo, and a lot of train ride and a lot of car ride. These are very remote areas. You actually cross some land with permafrost. You can see that as the permafrost melts, the house gets tilted. Okay, so here I was. I took a sleeper train from Moscow, long hour train. We went to Yaroslavl, visited some hospitals, and visit physicians, and went to Ivanovo and Kostroma. And interesting trip. We spent about a week there. I took 2 trips there, and interestingly, every surgeon basically was very friendly to us. They showed us their lab, their operating room, their patient wards, and they told me I am the first American executives they said that would bother to come to see their hospital. Okay, quite unprecedented. We were able to get a lot of information out of them. Then based on the information, we put together, remember, we have these incidents, cases, and dollars. We were able to put together this market segmentation strategy As you can tell, we had a blue, green, and red, and we are in blue already, and red is somewhere we cannot afford to go. Green is somewhere we want to expand. So judging from this chart, if we could go into green, we can our total patient touch would more than double, and the surgical cases would more than double. Then of course, once we go into the green segment, and these percentage will grow. Okay, so it's really a dynamic market. Okay, and then because we didn't have enough products, so I went to visit a lot of suppliers, and then we built some alliance. We negotiated some alliance possibilities, and then we would negotiate with them, and in order to implement multi-brand strategy in Russia, and we can more than double the surgical cases. And the value segment distribution goal will be within 3 years or so. We'll have a self-funded channel based on a 5-year financial pro forma. Okay, and then Brazil. Brazil is the leader of a South Cone. It's called Mercosur. Mercosur alliance in South America, and that basically has Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Chile. Well, it turns out that Brazil's healthcare border is very, very porous. If you have a solution for Brazil, you can apply similar solution to the entire South Cone. And so we decided to go to these cities: Rio Claro, Campinas, Porto Alegre, Buenos Aires, and Goiânia. Interesting, very, very interesting country. We had to fly. This is a large piece of continent, almost as large as the lower 48, the United States. So car and the train don't go very far, and we have to fly. And I went to Porto Alegre, visited surgeons over there. Again, we did a lot of market. We did a lot of face-to-face talk. We visited their facility, and we even visited their clinic discussion meetings. I also went to Rio Claro and visited some value segment potential alliance partners. Then after that, we put together our Brazil segmentation. By now you're familiar with this. The top premium is about 20% incidence. The bottom is 16%, and the one in the middle is quite large. Of course, these bottom I could never get there. These are the rural areas I couldn't even reach by airplane. There's Amazon basin with the Aborigines, and favelas. Favelas are hillside slums. They could go as high as 150,000 people. They have their own clinics, and I visited some of these clinics also, but I figured I couldn't go there. The price point is too low. I couldn't afford to go there to compete. But we certainly are interested in going into these 440 hospitals in the middle. Okay. And then again, we also build some alliance proposals. Make sure that we can do multi-channel distribution with no channel conflict, and we would identify what we would do as a joint venture. We put together a joint venture proposal, and then identify a joint venture task. So this will be a value-added channel to address the 440 hospitals. Okay, and then this will be a fast ramp up. Within a year, we can generate enough revenue to have a sustainable business, and we have a solution applicable to the Mercosur and Central America. Okay, and then the fifth decade. First of all, I serve as a senior advisor to Advent International, private equity fund. Sure enough, they sent me to the territory I was familiar with. So I went to South Asia, India, East Europe, and Brazil to gauge the acquisition target for them. I also serve as a board director of Mediland and board director of REMEX Technology. These are all basically surgical related equipment and facilities. Okay, and then I also serve as an advisor to the orthopedic societies in Greater China, such as CSOS, and I'm glad to get to know many surgeons and scholars in these societies. I find my opportunity to frequently speak on product innovation and enterprise valuation. The current topics of interest, wherever I go, I would read a lot. I would discuss with people a lot. I would speak a lot about IP, about enterprise valuation, affordability and accessibility, market segmentation, and emerging market penetration. As you can see, I went to all these countries, and their challenges are very, very similar. So, reflection on these 40 plus years of adventure. Well, my career migrated from engineering to business to marketing, and I was drawn into healthcare not by design, but by chance in 1990, despite my insufficient training in life science. And I believe many of you, with better training, you were able to contribute much more than I ever did if you set your target early. Okay, engineering is really about devising solutions methodically to address problems. So in that case, I actually have been doing engineering all my lifetime, but engineering is not an exact science, and much depends on people and financial consideration. And I would tend to focus on business model, make sure the concept, the idea, product formation is sustainable. Okay, it has to be sustainable in order to really create healthcare services. And I consider healthcare business a very motivating business, very satisfying business, because it serves people. It requires building relationship, building trust, and create genuine connection with the clinicians. And this is the fun part of the business. Okay, and I also treasure my global stage. I was fortunate to be on the Open China team. Then later on, I seized opportunities to learn Brazil, Russia, India, Mexico, on other continents by applying a similar strategy. The demand for quality healthcare is really very common worldwide, and much of the world today still lacks affordable and accessible care. And I think we all should have a mission of identifying the underserved segment in order to deliver care. And understandably, an enterprise constantly strives for expanding market share and additional incremental profit. But I believe a true measure of success is actually to deliver healthcare service to a maximum number of patients in need. Okay, how do I maximize my customer touch and let more people enjoy my care? I think that is much more important than money alone. Okay. And when I was traveling in rural markets, I felt a sense of mission to identify areas where we ignored before, to identify cost-effective therapy to wanting patients. And without channel focus, much of the healthcare technology resources is really wasted in R&D. That's a pity. The intended or misguided product or service never reaches those in need. That's the unfortunate part of doing R&D without a market guidance. My MBA education has served me very, very well. When I was at business school, I tend to favor economics, finance, accounting because they were more deterministic, and management and marketing were more abstract and less deterministic. Turn out these least preferred subjects impact my career the most. Okay, that's often the way the fate works in your life. You know. Lastly, a CEO's motto: customer is always first. Be proud of your products and develop your teams. Then, and only then, shareholders get rewarded. Not the other way around. I want to make sure the sequence is right: customer, product, and your own teams. Okay. So finally, I I'll give you some specific advices. Okay, number one, many frontiers in healthcare are yet to be explored by biomedical engineers. Refer to the device value chain. Do not just focus on the first 20%. There's still 50% downstream somewhere that need to be explored. So I encourage you to look further. Creative biomedical engineering solutions are needed more than ever, not necessarily advanced technology. The current COVID-19 related ventilator and test crisis is just a typical idea of what we really need. Engineers must acquire and partner with the marketing skills in order to create values in the healthcare channel. And when we pay more attention to channel, when we create more values in the channel, then ultimately we deliver more care and we generate more funds for R&D. So I think it's a positive cycle. I don't mean to ignore R&D, but you got to focus on channel, focus on creating values in the channel. Thorough marketing before engaging technical effort. Let market lead engineering, not the other way around. Okay, engineering must be constantly calibrated by clinical feedback to make sure that there is a clinical acceptance. In a merger and acquisition, a strong channel company with weak engineering always has the upper hand versus a company, a strong engineering company with a weak channel. This always happens among all the companies that I went through for merger and acquisition evaluation. I would encourage all of you to step out of our comfort zone to find a niche healthcare endeavor in which we can excel as a pioneer. I think we need to look beyond our immediate horizon. Okay, affordability, accessibility concerns have long existed in populous countries, but COVID-19 exposes such vulnerability even in the most advanced economy. This is a noble call for biomedical engineers. Okay, and finally, form alliance and learn by affiliation to enhance the effectiveness of your trade. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm ready for Q&A.
Thank you very much, Paul, for a very fantastic presentation. At this time, I will ask you to, please share your screen.
Okay.
Before we begin the Q&A, I think we only have a few minutes left. I would like to call your attention to our next webinar, which will be co-hosted by the WACBE and the International Chinese Musculoskeletal Research Society. The webinar will take place on Saturday, August 15th at a special time of 9 p.m. Eastern, which is actually Sunday, August 16th at 9 a.m. in Beijing. We will hear from Professor Edward Guo, Biomedical Engineering Department Chair at Columbia University, as he presents new insight on bone modeling and remodeling in response to mechanical loading. So we hope to see you at this next webinar. Okay, I think I saw we only got one question now. Okay, now we have two. The first one is Paul. I think that someone is asking whether your copy can be, he can have your presentation copy. Okay, but we can discuss that later. The second one is, it said, would you mind share a bit of your experience of marketing research in the emerging economies?
Okay. Yeah, should I answer that question first?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Well, I want to be fair to my old employer, Medtronic and Stryker. Obviously, there were a lot of softwares involved. But I will say this to you: software is software, but the modeling is based on human experience. That's why I travel to second-tier cities so I can see a cross-section of my clients, of all my potential clients. I put together a team of 8 or 9 people traveling with me. We designed a questioning, so we were able to obtain information that will be added to our market research. So it is not a cut and dry something like a deck of computer cards I can give to you. It is quite unique for each company. But I will say this to you: my market research is applicable to orthopedic surgery, in fact, to basically all of the healthcare devices. Okay, if you are interested in something like pharmaceutical, then don't use my model. Okay, my model is applicable to all devices. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Paul. Our next question is: what was the biggest challenge when working on the value sector in emerging economies?
Well, the biggest challenge is to convince your boss it's worth going. Okay, and that's why I gave you a statement that a typical company, I don't want to name them, a typical company wants to stay in a comfort zone, and they don't want to bother going to rural countryside. That's why that's what I said, that they like to be in well-known hospitals. But I thought it was my own personal mission to maximize customer touch. That's why I spend quite a bit of energy tracking number of surgical cases, not just how much revenue I generate. I track surgical cases because to me that is directly proportional to customer touch. Okay, so I did have to convince a lot of skeptics in order to do what I did. As you saw, I did something very, very similar in all of these large territories. You know, when you're given a territory, where do you go? Of course, if you go to Russia, everybody goes to Moscow and St. Petersburg. They won't bother going anywhere else. But we managed to go to a cross section of the country and make some sense of a large virgin land. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is: you have found a company and you run several companies. So how did you handle dealing with your team member, especially the one that you felt so uncomfortable with?
Yes. You know what? I have to be honest with you. I ran so many different companies. I switched jobs. I had different sets of employees, different products around me all the time. I was never, I'm ever probably since 30 years ago, I have not been a technical expert of my own product. It's just impossible. But I focused on 2 things. I focused on product business model, make sure that I understand the business model to shape and grow a sustainable business. And then I also focus a lot on people, meaning my customers. What do they want? I spend time seeing my customers. I meet with them face to face. I take them to lunch and dinner one-on-one. Then of course I also spend quite a bit of time developing my team. These are people business. I develop my team so my team can back me up and give me all the technical details. I was never a technical expert on all of the products because I basically handle too many products, as you see, over a 20-year span. Okay.
Okay. Our next question is, Paul, any advice to young students to create a future successful career?
Oh, okay. Well, you know, as I said, I got into healthcare business by chance, not by design, and I was able to accomplish a lot. I had a lot of fun. I think it was adventurous. I think you can do likewise. I would want you to get out of your comfort zone, accept assignments that you couldn't possibly believe that you can handle. Then be very humble, ask a lot of questions, build a lot of teams, build relationship, and you learn as you go. I think you'll be able to accomplish a lot. I think by laying out the value chain step by step, I can essentially have identified to you what you could do far beyond just R&D. I mean, there are so many pieces of value you can build in the channel by engaging yourself in the channel work. So there's a lot to do, and I hope that when you go into these areas beyond your comfort zone, you will find out that they open a lot of doors for you. Okay.
Okay. The last question I can see is at the beginning of your career, how did you manage the much exposure to business and the marketing?
Oh, at beginning of my career, well,
Yeah.
well, that was my nuclear energy business. Nuclear energy business actually was not strong in marketing because it's a complex technology with a very few customers. You know, probably the number of customers I deal with, probably 30 different companies. That's it. Okay, and it was a technology oriented business. I only have to sell my business based on technology competency. Healthcare is quite different. Healthcare is you've got small pieces of this and that, and you have to meet hundreds, thousands of surgeons, medical techs. It requires a different kind of people strategy. So you have to be comfortable with people. You have to be comfortable with asking stupid questions, and then I think that people appreciate your sincerity. And once you build connection with them, you learn from each other. So I think marketing is something as I said, I disliked marketing when I went to business school because I was a very quantitative type of person. But turned out marketing had the most impact on me because when you do creative marketing, you actually create market for new products and services. This is something I never understood when I was a business school student, but later on I learned by real hands-on experience.
Oh, I think there's one more very good question for you. How do you view global shift to value-based care reimbursement in context of a new device development?
Okay. You talk about reimbursement, right? Is that what you said?
Right.
Yeah. I think the COVID-19 is giving everybody a new outlook of the healthcare business. After all, COVID-19 is not from a healthcare standpoint, is not an advanced technology. It's all channel issue. When you look at the testing, when you look at the ventilator, they're not sophisticated technology, and all the crisis arose from lack of marketing channel planning. Okay, so if you can think of market channel, think of a distribution, think about patient reach, I think people are willing to pay for that part of the work. So reimbursement alone is not just related to technology, is not related to the sophistication of technology. It is sometimes related to how well you handle the distribution so you can reach out to the patients in need. Okay, so when we talk about value segment, I don't want you to have the impression this is only happening in Brazil and Mexico. Well, if you go to the suburb of San Diego or Denver, you will see value segment communities and value segment hospitals. Okay, and obviously I didn't just go to the suburb of San Diego to do my market research. I was determined to go to a larger expanse of territory where value segment hospitals are prevalent. That's why this strategy led me to the second tier cities. So I think if you can figure out how to reach out to patients, then patients or hospitals or public health administrators are willing to pay for your effort. I think that's ultimately the key to reimbursement.
Paul, we have a senior professor ask a question. If a professor would like to stay in academia, but would like to explore the translational opportunity in industry, what the advice you would like to provide?
Okay. Well, if you like to stay in an academic position, at the same time you want to get sort of familiarize yourself with the healthcare business, I would urge you to pick an assignment that is sponsored by a major brand, not necessarily related to advanced technology, but sometimes related to cost-effective solutions through some unique channels. I think there are opportunities like that. Very often, when we are trained as engineers and scientists, we tend to evaluate a project based on its technical sophistication. I would urge you to look at how you can create value-added service to maximize customer touch. Maybe that's a different kind of dimension, different way to look at whether a project is worthwhile or not. I think there are many projects sponsored by government or major brands in that direction. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, if we do not end up addressing your question, you can see our speakers' contact information on this slide. So please feel free to reach out to him following the webinar. Paul, thank you very much again. And thank you all for attending today's WACBE webinar. Be sure to register for our next webinar on August 15th. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good night. Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.